Would your future vision hire you? Between now and 2026, any headhunting for our mindset fuels the gritty production of creative, relational, and spiritual work, co-creating leadership, trust, and visionary commitment, beginning with this week's full moon in Aquarius, where we are invited to align with the sacred contracts guiding our personal and collective work by focusing on unseen roles we have yet to acknowledge. This is a direct managerial call to realign with our deepest vision and assess how ready we are to hire our own potential, promoting not only a second interview with our soul's purpose to shed redundant limits, but positioning us to step fully into the unique engagement only we can employ as the daily ground of embodying the divine feminine in all we do for a living becomes the networking nurture produced by both ourselves and the communities we serve. Sometimes it doesn't make sense. It's easy to get distracted by the life in between it all, losing sight of what we're hearing, repeating the lessons. The vision, however, is always there, hidden in the very thing we often avoid. Our potential, streamlined in the noise that holds it all together. I don't mean the confusing lyrics for this month's full moon in Aquarius, given to me over a week ago through the hardly recognisable conversations between Drake and Rihanna, suggesting the importance of work repeatedly in my mind. But the almost silenced signs of something greater being built with every action taken through our own energetic employment. In honesty, the information for this blog came through not long after the song, purely by wondering, curiously, what I would write about. Making space, tuning in and taking notes. It was easy. Given enough shorthand, divine dictation to type a draft there and then, I didn't trust what I'd received. And in this, knew what I needed to believe in myself was on its way. Supported in a formulated flow, multitasking videos, newsletters and appointments, all whilst acknowledging in reality there's no such thing, separation of creation, be it myself, the guidance, the ways I achieve it, the doubts or productivities. They all go together as part of the one great job or the sacred work. I leant into the discomfort, acknowledging that more roles were to be added into this never-ending position of reality making, so I could expand my own. Which, whilst it may seem to have no obvious rational order, moves to a rhythm familiar yet somehow beyond me, where everything is interconnected, an infinite portal of potential that is limitless in its directive and timing, a community of collective choices, including my own, that even now, writing this so many days later, I can feel myself reconnecting to through the vibrational apprenticeship of multiple inner sights, making what you read or hear, whenever that will be, based on everything I've already discovered for the future. Trippy, right? Not really, when we move beyond the restrictions of our own creative limits and embody the essence of what it means to be a seer, a predictor of the times to come through the information given and acted upon in every moment. All it takes is to be in the zone, focused, not externally, but from within the internal applicant tracking system, growing our conscious curriculum and moving past holding space to creating and intuitively becoming it. A branding statement we're all more than capable of until we try to make the intangible physical through what we believe to be productive, which no matter how many pivots of personal accolade we encounter, actually requires one thing: a return, constantly, to the inner tension between us and it, the overall vision, based on our own perceptive interpretation and any necessary subsequent alignment. A code of practice I thought I would be able to get away with, purely by sharing what I'd already done. Sensing into the energies for the upcoming full moon, post 8/8 Lionsgate peak on my husband's Earth Day, no less. Doing so 24 hours after moving into a 10-year vibrationing myself, and just prior to food poisoning, which is a whole other story, I believed I had enough experience to provide a relevant account of what was happening. Separating myself from it, removing the application of my own trade unions, what I'd actually done in my naivety was connect to everything that had been forming a less than constructive dismissal of them and me. Aware the astrology was set to happen the same day I am to run a market stall and connect to the local community, my personal aspiration was to write this blog simply to navigate it towards what was occurring for me. The collective agreement itself had other ideas, meaning there have been many soul contracts renegotiated since, as my own minimum waging has been redefined through several outsourcing offers, from restricted social media accounts and overtime in my body's limitation, through to resigning my husband's attention and occupational overwhelm. What had started as a brief, intentional internship to the potential lessons available this week has become a full-on internal initiation of reflected references and sustainable skill sets, supporting me to recognize and make redundant the previous roles within everything I've employed or been in service to, as I compensate the emotional depth and mental capacity needed to release any leadership I believed I had and truly boss it, simply by returning to one thing: the vision, held in and through the centre of every humanitarian, expansive, innovative idea received. The STAR method of each situation, encouraging me to look at the task I had and what was formed, the action taken, and admitting the results, as I, like us all in the next few months, take a moment to reconnect to the work needed in the acceptance of my own physical sacredness within it, honouring, reflecting, trusting our ability to embody the divine feminine in all we do for a living. Something we will be collectively made more aware of as we lead into 2026. With health due to receive recognised promotions on every level, this will include community, relationships and personal aspirations, all of which are set to be given a second interview for this week's full moon in Aquarius, bringing a much needed humanistic focus upon strong, expansive desires for connection, with special thanks to the heart-stretching of the previous Leo new moon. That being said, this time round we are being encouraged to reflect on the importance of ourselves within and as a vital aspect of any unions or support networks we may be building. Of course, this in turn is likely to prompt introspection, with so many retrograde planets, regarding our personal relationships, both to ourselves and others, particularly those that may have swept us up into a frazzling flow of fancy, providing multiple, at times continual, beneficial opportunity to reassess any long-term commitments, and from here, necessary improvements through open communication and emotional honesty. At the same time, we are being supported to look at our own understanding of work, be that employment, creativity, love, families, or with ourselves and ambitions, to identify where they have perhaps been less heart, more ego-led. By being honest with the level of difficulty felt, we can examine whether what we want still holds a position of sacredness, not just in exertion, but our own expectations, control, and defensive boundaries. Initiated by Mars in Libra opposing Saturn and Neptune in Aries, this conscious configuration, while stressful in any areas that need realigning, can, as a result, help us all to navigate more meaningful pursuits openly, which will only serve to employ a greater resilience in the face of any adversities we may be coming up against. Great for manifestation, growth and second chances, this full moon is linked to expanded vision, but as with all sight, will depend on our willingness to enter the depths of our own perception. It is the reality we find within each situation that will create any beauty, balance or harmony within our efforts, not only as a result of the Venus-Jupiter conjunction, but the hope and whispering promises of next year's enterprises. Provided we can, of course, embrace transformation for the meeting of mindsets that now needs to drive us all forwards toward authentic authority of our own agreements. How long this and subsequent shifts will take depends on how far we have come and the continued mentorship of our own wisdom we are willing to put in for. Pure and simple. Over the next few months, we may well have to get down and dirty to the root of some major employment shadow players if we are to get something we have never had, or at least believe ourselves to be lacking: self-governance. To volunteer with, not against our bodies, by reflecting on our personal goals and ensuring they are related to both our values and abilities. That doesn't mean we're incapable, but that there may be some foundational building required to support any expansive ideologies, particularly when resigning from or to any negative work patterns that seek to inhibit our own aspired agency, especially those we claim to be benchmarking through. There is a difference between daily grounding and the daily grind, which can only be found in awakening to our need for impartiality and objectivity. We cannot lose sight of the larger collective future, giving back to the communities we find ourselves in, but also to embrace the energy available with such employment. If we are to recognize true leadership, we must acknowledge we are not separate, better than, or employing the services we offer, but part of them, including obviously our own bodies, the workspace of any endeavour that will regularly, with the upgrades and expansions occurring, require rest and the provision of at least the basic needs to keep in circulation. Despite its vastness, however, the energies this week go beyond physicality or interdimensional awareness to common sense. The remembering, if transformation is to occur, it must be witnessed by ourselves in and through our actions, for the alchemic process life is. The emotional learning we came here to employ, a mission statement we are all about to expand on within the collective consciousness. Aided by the proud, intense individual Leo Sun and community group serving Aquarius Moon, we may be fooled into misinterpreting any conflicts as wayfinding. Us and them, be it gender, race, ideals, values, workloads, planetary alignments, portals, or mindsets, which is why it is important to keep coming back to the axis shared by it all. The star in the tarot, the vision of the fool, the light in the hermit's lamp, the existence of what we are trying to achieve already in illumination, purely in the choices we continue to make. Formed through the impulses now awakening within us, our response and the increasing job share or role we all have within the times to come. Linked to the sturgeon, intensity may wane this full moon as we find ourselves streaming against old management platforms that appear to be outdated and remote to anything we're trying to achieve. It is here we are being encouraged to regain focus in our own alignment, to move beyond how we believe things should be, often based on deeply integrated systems and redundant views of creation, and open ourselves up to how they could be, becoming not just personnel, but supervised from within our own psyche. By taking time to pause and remember progression, like change, doesn't always occur in the obvious way, we can use the power of our emotions to harvest post-la masse what we've achieved, through the lessons to be appreciated but not always moved forward with, and embrace the more solid managerial motivations now free to be built upon. Closer to the earth than a regular moon, we will experience our feelings, particularly spiritually, on a greater level, suggesting any increased risk-taking, heart coherence, and clarity of sharing will be essential if we are to rediscover what makes for agile internal workings. Enticing a rise in digital signage, especially regarding the 9 to 5 of joy, cooperation of collaboration, and subsequent deadlines of divinity. The next few weeks will offer, in their discomfort, the opportunity to liberate ourselves from pattern-based pressures by acknowledging whether what we do is a vocational visionary of our creative core. It's okay to change and grow. Many fear rejection in this, but the only approval we can ever fully receive is our own. This week, beyond portals and planetary alignment, there is an opportunity to pass through the promotion of this perception and realize we're always not only absorbing, but, as much as it may be difficult to admit, contributing to the collective design, particularly in the dreams we share or even repress. Now is a time to consider how you are unique. Identifying the activity-based workings you can offer in the grand scheme of things simply by showing up as yourself. The analytical strategies of your humanness, in the wisdom you have gained, and the co-working you have already become more than experienced enough to manage. Because if you want the occupation, it is time to accept your position within it fully. Occurring in the second Aquarian decan, sextile series, linked to the Six of Swords in the Tarot, placed between the 8-8 portal and Stargate opening on the 22nd, between the Sun and Regulus, or the Lion's Heart. This full moon is set to provide us all with a personal promotion of prosperity and fortune, defined purely on the acceptance we have of our own quirky, at times questioned, yet always undeniable higher truth. The work-based learning of who we are as we target how we may have been supported or at times restricted by our own internal trainings. Uniting with the asteroid Chariklo, the spirit medicine, largest yet often unmentioned centaur of grace and healing, a celestial bodily portrayal of the divine feminine herself through the mythical counterpart of Chiron, we are being urged in her image to provide more profound roles of networking and nurture, both for ourselves and each other. By examining institutions we may have employed or been contracted by that no longer provide community, friendly initiatives, or well-being, our own included. Working together to bring forth any powerful releases post-Chiron's retrograde at the end of July, this placement initiates a sense of neutrality to our emotions, now necessary if we are to bring desire to the energies we have been funding for rather than from, in time for eclipse season and the much needed recalibration of all that has occurred since February. Happening on the 9th of August at 8:57 p.m, hired through vibrational frequencies of the Fool, Magician, High Priestess, Hierophant, Chariot, Strength, Hermit, Star, Sun, Judgment, and the Wheel of Fortune overall. As we begin to take leadership into 2026, we are being internally interviewed by our visions to ensure we have the courage, insight, momentum, perception, and wisdom of our own skill set by firing the reservations we may have into the innovative vastness of intentional engagement. May we all acknowledge our own recruitment within the contractual obligations of any sacred work. In deepest Munai, I ask you now, are you feeling redundant? You know where I am. Take care. Kirsty.